During a family dinner on Thanksgiving Eve, I sat down at the table with a broken arm, unable to even pick up a fork. I just sat there, hungry, while the guests froze in silence. My daughter calmly said, "My husband taught him a lesson," he proudly shouted. "The old man thought he was the boss here, so I proved him wrong." I just smiled. But 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and he panicked. A father's revenge always comes unexpectedly, and justice does not forgive traitors. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The doorbell cut through my concentration like a blade. I'd been sorting through old Coast Guard investigation files, lost in the methodical work of organizing 2 decades of maritime incident reports. The afternoon light slanted through my study window, dust motes swimming in the beam. I wasn't expecting anyone. Lula stood on my porch, arms spread wide for an embrace that felt rehearsed. "Dad! Surprise!" Ralph lingered behind her, eyes fixed on his phone screen. He glanced up briefly when I stepped back to let them inside. "Hope we're not interrupting, Mr. Gray." The formality always grated. We'd known each other 7 years now. "Lula, Ralph, come in." My living room still carried the maritime photographs I'd collected over 30 years. Lighthouses, cargo vessels, the USS Constitution. My leather chair sat angled toward the window where I could watch the street. They settled onto the couch while I remained standing, waiting for the explanation I knew was coming. "We have something for you." Lula pulled a cream-colored envelope from her oversized purse, sliding it across my coffee table. The brochures inside gleamed with tropical blues and whites. Caribbean Pearl, 7-day cruise, 3 passengers, a cruise. I picked up the materials, studying them with the same attention I'd once given suspicious cargo manifests. "That's quite an investment." "You deserve it, Dad. We've been planning this for weeks." Her smile stretched too wide, like fabric pulled past its limit. Ralph leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your birthday only comes once a year. We wanted to do something meaningful." I set the brochures down with deliberate care. "You're both very generous, though I seem to remember a conversation about car repairs 6 months back." Lula's laugh came out brittle. "That's taken care of. We've been saving specifically for this. Right, Ralph?" "Absolutely." Ralph's response arrived too quickly, a man reciting prepared lines. "Insurance business has been solid lately. We wanted to show our appreciation for everything you've done." The words felt hollow. I knew Ralph's agency barely covered their mortgage. I'd seen the overdue notice that fell from Lula's purse during Christmas dinner, the one she'd snatched up with burning cheeks. "When does it depart?" I moved toward my kitchen, needing distance to think. They followed. "Saturday morning from Miami." Lula slid onto one of my kitchen chairs, fingers drumming against the oak table. 2 days from now. The timing's perfect." I filled the kettle, buying seconds to process. "I have a notary appointment Wednesday. Estate planning review. Nothing urgent." Ralph's coffee cup halted halfway to his mouth. The silence stretched until Lula broke it with forced brightness. "Reschedule it. Dad, honestly, estate planning can wait. This cruise opportunity expires tomorrow. The price goes up significantly after that." "These deals don't last," Ralph added, his voice dropping into a register I'd never heard before. Something cold lived in those words. I turned to face them, leaning against my counter. "When exactly did you book this?" Lula's gaze darted to Ralph before answering. "Last week. We wanted it to be a complete surprise." "Last week," I repeated, letting the timeline hang between us, before confirming I was available. "We knew you'd be available, Dad." Bitterness crept into her tone. "You're always available. It's not like you have anything else demanding your time." The accusation landed harder than she'd probably intended. Ralph shot her a warning glance, but the damage was done. She flushed, looking away. I poured water into 3 mugs, the domestic ritual giving me space to consider. My daughter wanted me on a cruise ship. My son-in-law watched me with eyes that measured rather than welcomed. A notary appointment had triggered visible tension. "Fine," I said finally. "I'll go." Lula's relief looked genuine, which somehow made it more troubling. "Really? Oh, Dad, you're going to love it. Quality time together, just the 3 of us." Ralph stood immediately, already moving toward my front door. "We'll send you all the details tonight. Departure is 9 a.m. sharp from Miami port. Don't be late." I followed them out, watching as they descended my porch steps. Lula paused at their car, turning back with what might have been authentic emotion flickering across her face. Thank you for saying yes. I know we've had our rough patches lately. Family is family, I said, because it seemed expected. Ralph opened the driver's door but didn't get in. Instead, he stood looking back at my house, studying it with an expression I couldn't decipher. Assessment? Inventory? His gaze swept across the windows, the small balcony, the neat landscaping I maintained myself. Then his attention shifted to me, and something in his face made my investigator on instincts flare. They drove away. I remained at my door, hand resting against the frame. Though the August afternoon was warm, a coldness had settled into my chest that had nothing to do with temperature. Inside, I returned to my study. The Coast Guard files lay scattered across my desk. Incident reports, witness statements, evidence photographs. 3 decades of investigating maritime accidents had taught me to recognize patterns, to trust when details didn't align properly. I pulled a small notebook from my drawer, the kind I'd carried during active investigations. My hand moved automatically, documenting what I'd observed. The expensive envelope, Ralph's 4 glances at his watch, Lula's trembling fingers, their reaction to the notary mention, the planned cabin locations I'd glimpsed on the passenger list. The evening light faded while I worked. When I finally moved to pack, I selected clothes methodically. Casual shirts, comfortable pants, nothing that would draw attention. The notebook went into my bag's side pocket, a habit from decades of fieldwork. I sat on my bed, staring at the packed luggage. My hand moved to the notebook again, pulling it out. I wrote one final observation before sleep. They need me on that ship specifically. The question is why. The highway stretched ahead, pre-dawn darkness giving way to gray. I'd left Clearwater at 7, thermos of coffee secured in the cup holder, GPS showing Miami port coordinates. The notebook sat in my passenger seat where I could glance at it during straight stretches, my observations from Thursday still visible in the dim interior light. Traffic thickened as I approached Miami. By the time I reached the port terminal at 11:30, the parking structure was already half full. I grabbed my bag, locked my truck, and headed toward the chaos of departure day. Families swarmed the check-in area, children shrieked with excitement, elderly couples shuffled forward with matching luggage. I scanned the crowd systematically, old habits asserting themselves. "Dad!" Lula's wave cut through the noise. She stood near the priority boarding sign, but Ralph was turned away, phone pressed tight against his ear. His shoulders carried tension like physical weight. I approached slowly, watching. Ralph's free hand gestured sharply, then froze when he noticed me. The call ended abruptly. "Work trouble?" I asked. "Insurance claim?" He pocketed the phone with controlled movement. "Nothing that can't wait until we're back." Lula linked her arm through mine, steering me toward the check-in counter. "Isn't this exciting? I've never been on a cruise before." "Neither have I admitted, allowing myself to be guided forward. The boarding process moved efficiently. Security, documentation, identification verification. Throughout it all, Lula remained within arm's reach. When an elderly couple noticed my Coast Guard cap and started asking about service history, Lula smoothly interrupted. "Dad, we need to locate our cabins quickly. The ship's enormous. We could get lost." The couple smiled politely and moved on. I filed the interference away mentally. A crew member in crisp whites escorted us to Deck 9. The corridor smelled of fresh carpet and cleaning solution. He stopped at cabin 912. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, your interior accommodation." Then he led me further down. "Mr. Gray, cabin 914. Exterior, with private balcony." I stepped inside. The space was compact but well appointed. The balcony door slid open smoothly, too smoothly, requiring almost no pressure. I walked out onto the narrow platform, gripping the railing. Standard height, maybe 42 inches. I leaned slightly, gauging the distance to the water below. 50 feet minimum, possibly more. "Enjoying the view already?" Ralph stood in my doorway, watching. "Quite a drop." I tested the railing's stability. Solid construction. "Hope you'll take advantage of the fresh air. Really breathe in the ocean." Something in his phrasing felt rehearsed. "I'm sure I will." I came back inside, noting how he tracked my movement. After he left, I conducted a thorough inspection. Door lock, standard magnetic key system. Balcony access. From inside only, but the sliding mechanism offered minimal security. Neighboring cabins. 913 and 915 showed no signs of occupancy through their balcony spaces. Isolated positioning. The afternoon passed in mandatory safety procedures. During the muster drill, passengers gathered at designated stations while crew members demonstrated life jacket usage. I noticed Ralph slip away mid-demonstration, moving toward an upper deck stairwell. Old surveillance instincts kicked in. I followed at a distance, keeping other passengers between us. Ralph emerged onto deck 11, pacing near the railing. His phone was out again, conversation intense. I moved closer, using a bulkhead for cover. I said everything's set for Monday night. Ralph's voice carried frustration. No, she's committed. Stop questioning me. He turned suddenly. Our eyes met. Whatever he read in my expression made his jaw tighten. Captain concerns? I asked, gesturing toward his phone. Insurance company. Always some crisis. He brushed past me, heading back down. I remained on deck 11, watching Miami's skyline recede as the ship began its departure. Monday night, 2 days away. The formal dining room that evening sparkled with chandeliers and white tablecloths. Ralph ordered a $30 cocktail, barely touched it. Lula picked at her salmon, pushing rice around her plate. Dessert arrived, chocolate mousse in crystal dishes. Ralph set down his untouched drink and leaned forward. That notary appointment you mentioned. What's the current status of your will? Lula's fork clattered against porcelain. Ralph? What kind of question is that? He ignored her, focus locked on me. Who's listed as primary beneficiary? Just curious about your estate planning approach. I took a deliberate sip of water before responding. That's confidential. We're family. His smile held no warmth whatsoever. Surely Lula inherits. She's your only child. Estate planning is complicated, I said carefully. Multiple factors involved. But at your age, these things should be finalized, clearly defined. He wouldn't release the topic, fingers laced together on the table. Lula deserves to know what her future holds. Ralph, please, Lula's voice cracked. Can we just enjoy dinner? I studied my son-in-law, insurance agent, failed business ventures, mounting debts I'd learned about through carefully worded conversations with Lula, now suddenly interested in my will's specific details. I'll review everything with my notary when we return, I said, standing. If you'll excuse me, the seafood isn't sitting well. Back in my cabin, I pulled out the notebook. New entries. Ralph's phone calls, his timing references, the will interrogation, cabin positioning, patterns emerging like coordinates on a nautical chart. I tried sleeping, but gave up around 11. The ocean called. Old maritime instincts never fully died. I stepped onto the deck, breathing salt air, letting the engine vibration travel through my feet. Then I saw them. Ralph and Lula stood at my cabin's railing, 30 feet away. Ralph gestured downward at the black water, arm extended in what looked like demonstration. Lula hugged herself, nodding at whatever he was explaining. My footsteps made no sound on the rubberized deck. 20 feet away now. 15. Ralph turned, froze. Lula spun, hand flying to her chest. Couldn't sleep? My voice carried across the space between us. Dad, you startled us badly. She moved away from the railing like it had burned her. Ralph recovered faster. Just getting air, enjoying the night view. I walked to where they'd been standing, looked down. Moonlight revealed dark water, endless and deep. No lights below, no witnesses up here. Quite a perspective from this height. We should return to our cabin, Lula said quickly. It's late. I think I'll stay a while. I gripped the railing where Ralph's hand had been moments before. The ocean at night has always fascinated me. Ralph took Lula's elbow with visible pressure. She needs rest. Early excursion tomorrow in Nassau. I didn't book any excursion, I noted, because you should take it easy, relax on the ship. Lula's words tumbled out too fast. They left. I remained at the railing, studying the drop, the isolation, the strategic positioning of everything. Monday night, Ralph had said on the phone. 2 days from now. Inside my cabin, I moved deliberately. The chair from the desk went against the balcony door, wedged under the handle. Phone alarm set for 6 a.m. Notebook open on the nightstand. I sat on the bed, pen in hand, writing everything down. The timeline, the evidence. The growing certainty that my daughter and her husband had brought me here for a specific, terrible reason. My hand moved across the page. Monday night, 2 days. I underlined it twice. Sleep never came. I'd lain in bed staring at the ceiling until 4:30, then abandoned the pretense. By 6 I was dressed, the chair still wedged against the balcony door, like a barricade against inevitability. At 7 I walked the promenade deck with a coffee cup warming my hands, watching sunrise paint the Caribbean in shades of amber and rose. The deck was nearly empty, early risers doing laps for exercise, a young couple photographing dolphins. I positioned myself with my back to the ship's superstructure, clear sightlines in every direction, old defensive habits asserting themselves. Inspector Gray? I turned. The man in captain's whites studied me with the same intensity I'd once used inspecting his vessel. Recognition hit simultaneously. Captain Webb, I extended my hand. Marcus, isn't it? His grip was firm, but his eyes swept the deck continuously. 15 years. You recommended me for that safety commendation after inspecting Atlantic Venture. Your protocols earned it. The memories surfaced. A young officer obsessive about life jacket inspections, fire drill timing, emergency equipment placement. You've done well for yourself. Thanks to you. He stepped closer, glancing over his shoulder. His voice dropped until I had to lean in to hear. Wilbert, listen carefully. You need to leave this ship, any way possible. Your son-in-law is planning... Footsteps approached, rapid and deliberate. Ralph rounded the corner in jogging clothes, towel draped around his neck. His eyes locked onto us with immediate suspicion. Marcus released my forearm. I hadn't even registered he'd grabbed it, and straightened his uniform. Enjoy your breakfast, Mr. Gray. The formality was forced, his departure too abrupt to appear natural. Morning exercise, Wilbert? Ralph stopped beside me, breathing elevated but watching Marcus's retreating back. Just enjoying the sunrise. Friendly with the captain? The casual question carried weight I couldn't miss. We met professionally, years ago. He mentioned welcoming passengers. Part of his duties, I assume. Ralph wiped his face with the towel, studying me over the fabric. What was he saying to you? That the buffet opens at 7:30. I kept my voice level. Would you like to join me? His jaw tightened. He didn't believe me, but couldn't push without revealing his own suspicions. Lula's still sleeping. I'll see you at lunch. He jogged away, but not before looking back twice. I spent the afternoon near the pool pretending to read a paperback I'd found in the ship's library. The pages might as well have been blank. My mind catalogued movements, logged faces, tracked patterns. Ralph appeared around 3 with Lula, settling at a nearby table. An elderly gentleman in a Panama hat occupied the chair closest to them. Ralph ordered drinks. Then his voice rose slightly. Calculated projection. Terrible story I heard about last year's cruise season. Passenger went overboard at night. The elderly man looked up from his newspaper. How dreadful. Was he drinking? They think so. Ralph leaned back, too comfortable with the topic. Leaned over the railing to look at stars. One wrong move and you're in the water. At night, in the dark, the ship moves fast. You're left behind in minutes. They search, obviously, but... He trailed off with meaningful silence. My fingers tightened on the book's spine. This was rehearsal. Ralph was establishing the narrative for witnesses, planting the seed of how an old man might accidentally fall overboard. Lula sat rigid beside him, contributing nothing. Her hands clutched her phone like a lifeline. Reminds you to be careful, the elderly man said, returning to his paper. Absolutely. Ralph caught my eye across the deck, held it for 3 seconds. Then looked away. I returned to my cabin before dinner, appetite gone. The chair remained wedged against the balcony door. I sat on the bed, opened my notebook, added today's observations, Marcus's warning, interrupted, Ralph's poolside performance, the timeline tightening. Hours passed. I tried eating crackers from the minibar, managed 2 before nausea stopped me. Not fear. I'd faced danger before. This was different. This was family. At 11:17, soft knocking. Through the peephole, Marcus alone, face pale in the corridor lighting. I opened the door. He slipped inside before I'd fully cleared the entrance, checking the hallway before closing it. I'm risking my command being here. His hands trembled as he spoke. But I can't let this happen. Sit down, start from the beginning. He remained standing, pacing the narrow space between bed and desk. Saturday night, early Sunday morning, actually, around 2, I was on the bridge checking navigation equipment, standard duty during overnight watch. He ran both hands through his hair. I heard voices below, on the deck directly beneath the bridge. Unusual for that hour. Go on. I recognized them. Your daughter and her husband. Marcus's voice cracked. They didn't know I was there. I moved to where I could hear without being seen. My hands remained steady on my knees. My voice was not. What did they say? Your son-in-law was discussing timing. He said tomorrow night, tonight, Sunday, wouldn't work. Too many variables. Monday would be better. Marcus met my eyes. The formal dinner. He said, we make sure he drinks plenty at dinner. Wine, after dinner drinks. Then we suggest going on deck for fresh air. Stars are beautiful tonight. Perfect photo opportunity. Those were his exact words. The cabin felt smaller, colder. Then he said, Marcus swallowed hard. He said, I push him when she distracts him. Quick, clean. We scream, raise alarm, but it's too late. Ocean's too big at night. And my daughter? I had to ask, though I already knew. Marcus's expression held genuine pain. She asked, what if someone saw? He laughed, actually laughed, and told her nobody would be on deck during dinner. And even if someone noticed, you'd be the grieving family. He was drunk, celebrating his birthday, got careless. Tragic accident. I stood, moved to the small window overlooking Blackwater. What else? She asked how long until the insurance pays out. The words landed like physical blows. That's when I knew she wasn't just going along with it. She's actively participating. The evidence I'd been collecting crystallized into undeniable pattern. The sudden cruise gift, the separate cabin with balcony access, Ralph's questions about my will, tonight's poolside story establishing the accidental narrative. All of it deliberate, all of it planned. Why tell me? I turned to face him. You could lose everything? 15 years ago, you could have failed me on that inspection. One bad report would have ended my career before it started. Marcus's voice steadied. But you were fair. You saw I was trying to do things right, and you gave me that chance. You earned it? Maybe. But now it's my turn. He gripped the desk edge. I can't let a man die when I have the power to stop it. And if I do nothing and you die tomorrow night, I'm complicit. That's criminal negligence at minimum. I sat back down, processing logistics. What are you suggesting? Get you off this ship before tomorrow night. Marcus pulled out his phone. I have contacts. Maritime networks run deep. If I can arrange a passenger transfer in the middle of the ocean? Medical emergency. It's been done. He scrolled through contacts. There are protocols. Another vessel, a transfer at sea. It's risky, but not impossible. You'd do that? Marcus looked up from his phone. I'd do more than that to prevent a murder on my ship. Will you trust me? I thought of Lula as a child. Gap-toothed smile, scraped knees, absolute faith that her father could fix anything. I thought of Ralph's cold calculation. I thought of tomorrow night. Dark water, a scream that would come too late. Yes, I said. I'll trust you. Give me 30 minutes. Marcus moved toward the door. Stay in your cabin. Don't open it for anyone but me. His hand rested on the handle. He turned back, jaw set with determination. I'll find a way, Wilbert. I promise. The door closed behind him. I was alone again, staring at the chair barricading the balcony door. I checked my watch. 11:48. Tomorrow night was the planned murder. I had less than 24 hours. I opened my notebook to a fresh page and wrote, Monday night formal dinner, approximately 24 hours. Then I sat on the bed and waited. 28 minutes. I counted them in the silence, unable to sit, unable to think beyond the ticking seconds. I paced the cabin's narrow length, 6 steps wall to wall, examining the family photograph I'd brought. Lula, at 8 years old, missing front tooth, my arm around her shoulders. That child had trusted me completely. The woman who replaced her wanted me dead. Soft knocking pulled me from the photograph. I opened the door before Marcus finished the second knock. I found a way. He entered quickly, checking the corridor one final time before closing us in. This time he sat, perching on the desk chair with forward lean that suggested barely contained energy. There's a cargo vessel 15 nautical miles north. Nordic Star, heading to Nassau for port calls tomorrow afternoon. I contacted the captain, Thomas Brennan. Worked together on shipping routes 5 years ago. You told him? Enough. Medical emergency requiring immediate transfer to a vessel with better medical facilities. He didn't ask questions. Marcus pulled a small notepad from his uniform pocket, consulting handwritten notes. Here's how this works. Around 3 this morning, we move you to the medical bay. The cover story is severe food poisoning, specifically suspected bacterial contamination from yesterday's raw oyster bar. That explains isolation, need for advanced care, and why you can't have visitors. I absorbed the logistics professionally. Won't Ralph and Lula demand to see me? Standard quarantine protocol. Food poisoning is contagious until we rule out certain bacteria. They can't visit sick passengers during isolation period. His confidence was reassuring. By the time we dock in Nassau tomorrow afternoon, and they realize you're not in medical bay, you'll already be there waiting for them. What about your career? Marcus's jaw tightened. If this goes wrong and you die, I'm complicit in murder. I heard the plan and did nothing. That's negligence, possibly accessory after the fact. I'd rather risk my command than live with that. You're putting yourself in danger for me? You gave me my career. I'm trying to save your life. We're even. He checked his watch. We have 2 hours before we execute. Pack minimally. Personal documents, wallet, phone. Nothing that would suggest permanent departure. We need Ralph and Lula to believe you're returning after medical treatment. I moved automatically, pulling items from my bag. Passport, wallet, phone charger, the notebook with all my observations. Then I stopped at the desk, pulled out the hotel stationery I'd noticed earlier. What should I tell them? Pen hovering over blank paper. Keep it simple. You felt ill. Transferred for better medical care. You'll meet them in Nassau. I wrote the first version, then crossed it out. Too cold. The second attempt had too much detail. Suspicious. The third achieved the necessary false normalcy. Lula woke up feeling terrible around 2 a.m. Must have been the seafood at dinner. The ship's doctor recommended transferring me to another vessel with better medical facilities. Don't worry about me. I'll meet you when we dock in Nassau tomorrow. Rest and enjoy the cruise. My hand hesitated over the closing. Marcus watched without speaking. I finished. Love, Dad. The word felt like betrayal, but maintaining cover required authenticity. I folded the note, wrote Lula on the outside. I'll make sure she gets this after you're gone. Marcus pocketed it carefully. The doctor and a medical assistant will come at 3. Play along. You're ill but not critical. Weak, nauseous, but stable enough for transfer. Can you do that? I've spent 30 years reading body language. Projecting it isn't difficult. Good. He stood. I need to coordinate with Nordic Star's captain, inform our medical staff, and arrange the tender. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me, the doctor, or someone who says, Inspector Gray, it's time for your breakfast. That's the password? It's nautical dawn, time when horizon becomes visible. Appropriate, I thought. He moved toward the door. Try to rest. You'll need your strength. After he left, I sat on the bed with the family photograph. 3 decades of investigation work had taught me to read people, to see through deception, to follow evidence where it led. All that training, and I'd missed the signs with my own daughter until it was nearly too late. I set the photo face down and prepared to survive. At 2:57, the password came through the door. Inspector Gray, it's time for your breakfast. The ship's doctor entered first, middle-aged woman with efficient movements and kind eyes. Behind her, a younger medical assistant wheeled a transport chair. Mr. Gray, I'm Dr. Patel. The captain explained your symptoms. She took my pulse. Professional, but not invasive. We're transferring you to Nordic Star. They have more advanced diagnostic equipment for suspected bacterial food poisoning. Thank you. I let my voice weaken, shoulders slump. Into the chair, please. We'll get you comfortable. I settled into the wheelchair, accepting the blanket the assistant draped over my lap. Dr. Patel checked my forehead temperature. I'd splashed cold water on my face minutes before, creating clammy skin. Fever's moderate, consistent with foodborne illness. She made notes on a tablet. Let's get you to medical bay first, then we'll prepare for transfer. They wheeled me through corridors I'd never seen. Service passages, crew-only areas marked with security keypads. The ship felt different here. Utilitarian and functional, rather than luxurious. We passed night shift workers who nodded respectfully at the doctor and looked away from me out of courtesy for my illness. The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and clean linens. They transferred me to an examination bed, took blood pressure readings for appearance's sake, documented everything with professional thoroughness. Marcus arrived at 4:10. Nordic Star is in position. C state is favorable for transfer. Dr. Patel, is the patient stable? Stable enough. She checked her notes. I've contacted their medical officer. They're prepared to receive him. Then let's proceed. The journey to the lower deck tender platform felt surreal, moving through the ship's belly while passengers slept above, unaware. The medical assistant helped me back into the wheelchair. We took a service elevator down, then emerged onto an open platform where the sea breeze hit me with salt spray and diesel fumes. The tender boat waited, small crew in orange safety vests. In the distance, Nordic Star's lights created a constellation against the dark water. Carefully now. They helped me from wheelchair to tender, maintaining the pretense of illness even here where only crew could see. Dr. Patel handed paperwork to the tender operator, medical transfer documents, making everything official. Marcus gripped my shoulder briefly. Nordic Star's captain will take good care of you. Stay in Nassau until this ship docks tomorrow. Then decide your next move. I will. Thank you, Marcus. Send word when you're safe. He stepped back. The tender's engine growled to life. We pulled away from Caribbean Pearl, all that luxury and elegance now housing my daughter who planned my murder. The tender crossed the gap between vessels efficiently, riding swells with practiced ease. Nordic Star grew larger, industrial and weather-beaten, nothing like the cruise ship's polish. Their crew waited at the transfer platform, helping me aboard with rough kindness. The tender departed immediately, returning to Caribbean Pearl before dawn could expose the operation. I stood on Nordic Star's deck, no longer pretending weakness. The cargo ship's captain approached, stocky man with gray beard, assessing eyes. Thomas Brennan, Marcus explained enough. He didn't offer his hand. Medical emergency, you said. But you don't move like a sick man now that you're aboard my ship. The illness was strategic, I assumed. Maritime Network shares stories. Marcus Webb doesn't lie, so whatever reason you had for that emergency transfer, I trust it was necessary. He gestured toward the bridge. We dock in Nassau at 1400 hours. You're welcome to stay in one of our spare cabins until then. Coffee's terrible, but it's hot. I appreciate the discretion. I appreciate honest men. Marcus is one. I'm assuming you are too. He turned toward the companionway. Get some rest, Mr. Gray. Nassau's still 8 hours away. I didn't rest. I stood at Nordic Star's railing, watching Caribbean Pearl's lights recede into darkness, becoming indistinguishable from stars reflected on water. Dawn lightened the eastern horizon gradually, painting the sky in layers, deep purple, then navy, then pale blue touching gold. The industrial engine vibration traveled through my feet, familiar from decades of Coast Guard inspections. This ship smelled of diesel and honest labor, nothing like Caribbean Pearl's manufactured luxury. I pulled out my notebook, opened to a fresh page. My hand moved with deliberate precision. Evidence needed: insurance policy documentation, financial motive records, witness testimony, Marcus Webb, physical evidence, cabin positioning, planned timeline. Below that, I wrote one word and underlined it twice. Nassau. Nordic Star's horn sounded deep, resonant, purposeful. We were making good time. I'd be in Nassau before Caribbean Pearl docked that afternoon. I'd be waiting when they arrived, expecting to find me either dead or missing. They'd find neither. They'd find something far worse. I closed the notebook, the word Nassau underlined twice, staring back at me. Dawn had fully broken now, painting the water in copper and gold. The cargo ship's bridge rose behind me, Captain Brennan visible through the windows checking instruments. I needed legal counsel. Now. Brennan looked up when I entered. Something you need, Mr. Gray? Satellite phone. I'll pay for the call. He studied me briefly, then gestured toward the communications panel. Help yourself. No charge. The number came from memory. Harriet Donovan, maritime attorney I'd worked with 15 years ago on Coast Guard injury cases. She'd been sharp then. Probably sharper now. 3 rings. Harriet Donovan. Harriet. Wilbert Gray. Coast Guard inspection cases 2010. Brief silence. Wilbert, it's been years. What's happened? My daughter and son-in-law attempted to murder me last night. I escaped with help from a ship's captain. I need legal advice immediately. Her voice shifted, still professional but focused now. Start from the beginning. Facts only. I gave her the compressed version, the suspicious cruise gift, cabin placement, Ralph's questions about my will, Marcus overhearing the murder discussion, my emergency evacuation. She listened without interruption. Did anyone else witness their planning? She asked when I finished. Captain Marcus Webb. He overheard everything, helped me escape. He's willing to provide testimony. Excellent. That's your cornerstone witness. What other evidence do you have? Personal observations, documented timelines, suspicious behaviors. Not enough for prosecution yet. Then gather more. Document everything. If possible, record them incriminating themselves further. She paused. Where are you now? Aboard Nordic Star, approaching Nassau. The cruise ship docks there this afternoon. Perfect. Let them see you alive. Their reaction will be evidence. But Wilbert, don't confront them alone. Stay visible, stay protected. Her tone sharpened. And find yourself a good investigator in Nassau. You'll need surveillance capability. You have recommendations? James Cromwell, former Bahamian police, now private practice. I'll text you his contact information. Keys clicked in the background. Call me after you've met with him. We'll build this case properly. Nassau materialized through morning haze. Pastel buildings climbing hillsides. Cruise terminals sprawling along the waterfront. Nordic Star docked at the cargo facility around 8. Industrial and efficient. I disembarked with my small bag, feeling oddly exposed on solid ground. The CAF, Cromwell suggested, sat between cargo operations and tourist areas, neutral territory. He was already there when I arrived, coffee untouched, eyes tracking my approach with professional assessment. Mr. Gray, he didn't stand. Harriet speaks highly of you. I sat across from him. She said you're trustworthy. Depends on the job. He leaned back, fingers laced. She mentioned family trouble. Murder plot. Want to explain? I did, watching his expression remain neutral throughout. When I finished, he asked 3 sharp questions about timing, cabin locations, and Marcus's exact testimony. Then he nodded. You want surveillance, specifically recording their reaction when they discover you're not dead. And not sick, and waiting for them in Nassau. Risky. They might try again. They'll try regardless. I want documentation of their continued intent. Cromwell pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. I have someone inside Caribbean Pearl's crew. Steward on the upper decks. Good man. Needs money for his daughter's medical bills. For 2,000 cash, he'll install a camera in your cabin before your family discovers you're gone. I counted out bills from my emergency funds. Wireless feed? Cloud encrypted. You'll have access within the hour. He pocketed the money efficiently. Stay here. I'll coordinate installation. The next 90 minutes stretched. I drank coffee that tasted like rust. Watched cruise ships maneuver in the harbor. My phone buzzed. Cromwell's text with login credentials. I opened the surveillance app, saw my former cabin in real time. Empty bed, barricaded balcony door still visible. Afternoon sunlight through the porthole. Around 1 o'clock, movement. The door opened. Ralph entered first, scanning the space like he expected ambush. Lula followed, holding a piece of paper. My note. The audio quality was surprisingly clear. Where is he? Ralph moved through the small space, checking the bathroom, the closet. Lula unfolded my note, read aloud. Woke up feeling terrible around 2 a.m. Transferred to another vessel with better medical facilities. Meet you in Nassau. Her voice wavered. He's really sick. We should find him. That cunning old fox. Ralph snatched the note, read it himself. How did he... He stopped mid-sentence, wheels turning behind his eyes. The plan failed. Lula sat heavily on the bed. What do we do now? Ralph paced, hands raking through his hair. I'd never seen him this agitated. We adapt. Nassau works better anyway. We can stage something there. Robbery gone wrong. Tourists get killed. It happens. Ralph, no. Maybe we should just what? He spun on her. Give up the money, the house, everything we planned. After 3 months of preparation, she flinched. I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. He crouched in front of her, gripping her shoulders. Because if we don't, we lose everything. The debt collectors don't care about your feelings. I watched them, cataloging every word, every gesture. Cromwell appeared beside me, laptop open. Getting all this? I asked quietly. Every frame. That's premeditation and conspiracy, right there. He glanced at me. Your daughter seems conflicted. She's still complicit. My phone rang. Harriet, I answered, still watching the screen where Ralph was now checking the balcony door, testing its security. Wilbert, my research assistant, found something. Her voice carried grim satisfaction. 3 months ago, May 15th, a life insurance policy was taken out on you. $500,000. My chest tightened. I never signed any policy. I know. The signature's forged. I compared it to your actual signature from the Coast Guard documents. And the insuring agent? She paused for emphasis. Ralph Morrison, licensed agent with Maritime Benefit Insurance. He used his position. Exactly. Fast-tracked approval. Listed your daughter as beneficiary to avoid suspicion. This isn't spontaneous desperation, Wilbert. This is calculated, premeditated murder for financial gain. On the screen, Ralph was leaving the cabin, Lula trailing behind him like a ghost. Their faces showed everything. Frustration, fear, determination. Send me the documentation, I said. Policy numbers, application copies, everything. Already done. Check your email. Harriet's tone softened slightly. How are you holding up? I'm functional. That's sufficient. After we disconnected, I reviewed the insurance documents on my phone. Ralph's handwriting on the agent notes, my forged signature on the application. Lula listed as sole beneficiary. 3 months of planning, reduced to paper trails and digital records. Cromwell closed his laptop. You've got enough for prosecution. Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, multiple felonies. Not yet. I met his eyes. I want them to incriminate themselves further. I want absolute certainty. They're planning another attempt in Nassau. That's dangerous. In public spaces with witnesses, they won't risk it. I checked my watch. Caribbean Pearl would dock in 45 minutes. Besides, I'm done hiding. Time they understood what they're actually dealing with. Cromwell studied me with professional curiosity. You're going to wait for them on the dock. I want to see their faces when they realize I'm alive and well. Bold strategy. Could backfire. Then I'll adapt. I stood, pocketing my phone. Just like they're doing. We moved to the cruise terminal, arriving as Caribbean Pearl's massive hull appeared in the harbor entrance. The ship maneuvered slowly, precisely, docking procedures unfolding with practiced efficiency. Passengers crowded the rails, waving to people on shore. I positioned myself where they'd see me immediately upon disembarking. Cromwell found position 20 feet away, tourist camera ready but trained on nothing in particular. The gangway extended. Passengers began streaming down, families with children, elderly couples, young lovers. I scanned faces, looking for the only two that mattered. Then I saw them. Lula's bright sundress, unmistakable in the crowd. Ralph beside her in casual shirt and dark sunglasses. They moved slowly, scanning the dock. Tension visible even from this distance. They hadn't seen me yet. I stepped forward, raised my hand in greeting. Lula! Ralph! Over here! Lula turned, her face drained of every shade of color. The frozen seconds stretched. Lula's mouth opened, no sound emerging. Her hand shot out, gripping Ralph's forearm with visible force. Other passengers flowed around them, oblivious, chattering about parasailing and conch fritters. Ralph followed her stare. His body went rigid, sunglasses masking his eyes, but jaw clenching visibly. I maintained my position, pleasant expression fixed, one hand still raised. 20 feet away, Cromwell's camera phone angled to capture everything. The moment broke. Lula moved first, legs carrying her forward through some automatic response to seeing her father. Her embrace when she reached me felt like hugging a mannequin, all stiff angles and trembling resistance. Dad! Her voice cracked. We thought... The note said you were sick. Recovered beautifully. I held her at arm's length, studying her face. The doctor on Nordic Star was excellent. Former emergency room physician treated me like his own father. Ralph approached more slowly, hand extended rather than embracing. You recovered remarkably fast. I shook his hand firmly, held his gaze through the sunglasses. Modern medicine works wonders. Aren't you glad to see me? Of course. The words came out mechanical. We were concerned. No need for concern now. I'm perfectly healthy. I released his hand, gestured toward Nassau's streets, beyond the terminal. Shall we get lunch? I've been exploring while waiting for you. Found an excellent seafood place. They had no choice. Too many witnesses, too public, too bright with Caribbean sunshine and tourist cameras. We walked together through customs, through the terminal, into Nassau's humid embrace. You could have called, Ralph said as we navigated pedestrian traffic. Wanted to surprise you. Besides, phone service on cargo ships is terrible. All those metal walls. I pointed toward a restaurant overlooking the harbor. There. The grouper is exceptional. Throughout lunch, I maintained cheerful conversation, asking about their last 2 days aboard ship, sharing my cargo vessel experience, discussing Nassau's history with tour guide enthusiasm. Ralph barely touched his food. Lula pushed rice around her plate, taking tiny bites that she struggled to swallow. As coffee arrived, I dropped my announcement. I purchased 3 tickets for Caribbean Pearl's return voyage to Miami. Departs Friday morning. Ralph's cup paused halfway to his lips. That's not necessary. We can fly back. Nonsense. We came by ship, we return by ship. I smiled at Lula. Family vacation isn't complete until we're all back home together, right? She swallowed hard. Right. Of course, Dad. Wonderful. That's settled. I signaled for the check. We have 3 days to enjoy Nassau properly. Cable Beach this afternoon. Over the next 72 hours, I orchestrated every moment. Tuesday morning, we toured the straw market, where I insisted on buying matching sun hats and photographing us wearing them. Tuesday afternoon at Cable Beach, I positioned us for endless selfies. Lula and Ralph standing close, me between them, all of us squinting into sunlight with smiles that didn't reach anyone's eyes. Ralph attempted several times to create isolation. Early morning boat charter tomorrow. Just the 3 of us? Too tired, I deflected easily. That food poisoning really took it out of me. I prefer staying near medical facilities, just in case. Late night beach walk? These old knees don't do well on sand and darkness. Let's stick to the group tours during daylight. Wednesday, we explored colonial architecture, Fort Fincastle, Queen's Staircase, Government House. I photographed them at every location, directing their positions like a wedding photographer. Stand closer. Smile like you're having fun. This is for the memory books. Their smiles became increasingly brittle. Lula developed a nervous habit of picking at her nails until they bled. She wore sunglasses constantly, hiding the dark circles forming under her eyes. Ralph's patience frayed visibly, snapping at restaurant staff, cutting off Lula mid-sentence, checking his phone obsessively. I caught fragments of their whispered arguments when they thought I wasn't listening. Wednesday evening in an alley between shops. He knows something, Ralph hissed. He must. How could he? Lula's voice carried desperation. We were careful. That transfer, the timing, it's too convenient. Maybe he really was just sick. Don't be naive. Something's wrong. We need to figure out what. But I always appeared before they could strategize further, cheerfully suggesting our next activity, maintaining relentless proximity. Thursday night, our final evening before boarding, I insisted on dinner at a harbor restaurant with outdoor seating. Caribbean Pearl was visible in the distance, lit up against darkness like a floating city. As dessert arrived, I set down my water glass. I'd avoided alcohol entirely, much to Ralph's obvious frustration, and became momentarily serious. I want to thank you both. This trip has meant everything to me, despite the health scare. Family is what matters most. I raised my glass. To family. Ralph and Lula lifted their glasses reluctantly. The toast felt like accusation wrapped in sincerity. After dinner, walking back to our hotel, I positioned myself between them, physically separating them, controlling our formation. Ralph tried to lag behind, creating distance, but I matched his pace. Beautiful night, isn't it? Perfect temperature. Perfect, he echoed flatly. Friday morning, we boarded Caribbean Pearl for the return voyage. I'd arranged different accommodations, 3 interior cabins along a central corridor, surrounded by other passengers. No exterior balconies, no isolated access points. When Ralph questioned this, I explained with practiced innocence. After that food poisoning experience, I wanted to be closer to other people. Felt safer being surrounded by activity rather than isolated. His eyes narrowed behind sunglasses. Safer from what? From being alone if I got sick again, obviously. I smiled. Why? What did you think I meant? He didn't answer, just turned away to examine his cabin. I watched him test the door lock, check the hallway sightlines, calculate angles. His professional assessment was visible, measuring opportunities, finding none. The ship departed Nassau at noon, horn sounding our exit. I positioned myself at the interior observation deck, not the exterior rails, never the rails, watching the island recede into blue distance. Ralph and Lula stood separately along the corridor, isolated from each other and from me. Both stared at their phones or into middle distance, trapped in whatever thoughts consumed them. My phone buzzed, text from Harriet. Evidence package complete. Insurance fraud documentation, forged signatures, witness statements from Captain Webb, surveillance recordings from Nassau. Ready to proceed when you are. I pocketed the phone, turned away from the windows toward the ship's interior. 3 days at sea ahead, then Miami. Then real consequences would begin. Walking past Ralph toward the dining room, his voice stopped me, low, barely audible. Enjoy dinner, Wilbert, while you can. I didn't turn back, didn't react, just continued walking. My hand slipped into my pocket where my phone held every recorded threat, every piece of evidence, every mistake they'd made. 3 days at sea, then they'd understand exactly what they'd tried to destroy. The parking area outside Miami's cruise terminal was organized chaos. Families reuniting, luggage carts clattering, goodbyes echoing across asphalt. I stood beside my car, keys in hand, watching Ralph and Lula approach through the crowd. Thank you for the cruise. I pulled Lula into a hug, felt her body stiffen against mine. Despite everything, it was memorable. Ralph extended his hand rather than embrace. His grip was brief, fingers cold despite the Florida heat. Let's do it again sometime, Lula offered, voice hollow. Actually, let's get together soon. I kept my tone casual, conversational. I'd like to discuss some family matters. Ralph's eyes sharpened behind his sunglasses. What kind of matters? Better discussed at home. I'll call you. I smiled warmly, waved as they walked toward their vehicle. I watched their car exit the lot, then turned toward mine. But I didn't head north toward Clearwater. I drove east into downtown Miami. Harriet Donovan's law office occupied the 10th floor of a glass tower, with Atlantic views. She'd been waiting, conference room prepared, coffee brewing, large monitor displaying files Cromwell had transmitted. Let's see what we have. She gestured toward the table where documents lay spread like evidence at a crime scene. She played the cabin recording first. Ralph's voice emerged clear through the speakers. Stage a robbery in Nassau. Tourists die here all the time. Single-party consent? I asked. Your cabin, your safety. Completely admissible. She switched to the insurance documents. And this is textbook fraud? My signature on the policy application looked similar to my actual signature. Same general shape. But the pressure points were wrong, the rhythm off. Ralph had practiced, but not enough. Compare it to your Coast Guard retirement papers. Harriet placed them side by side. See the difference in the capital G? Yours has a distinct loop. The forgery doesn't. Next came the cruise ship footage Cromwell had obtained through his crew contact. The timestamp showed Sunday, August 18th, 6 p.m. Ralph stood at the balcony railing outside cabin 914, my cabin, testing its height with both hands, looking down at the water. He did this twice, methodically, like an engineer calculating stress points. Conspiracy to commit murder. Harriet ticked off charges on her fingers. Attempted murder based on Captain Webb's testimony. Insurance fraud. Combined, we're looking at 25 to 30 years. We could go to the police today, I said. Absolutely. She waited, watching my face. But I don't want to. I suspected as much. She leaned back, arms crossing. What are you thinking? I explained. Invite them over. Announce I'm changing my will. Everything to the Coast Guard Veterans Fund. If their motive is truly financial, they'll react desperately. I want them to hire someone. I want absolute proof of intent. You're using yourself as bait. I've been bait since they booked that cruise. The difference now is I control the environment, I have existing evidence, and I'll have law enforcement ready to intervene. Harriet studied me for a long moment. Then she opened her laptop. If we're doing this, we do it properly. By late afternoon, we'd arranged everything. Cromwell's team would install GPS trackers on Ralph and Lula's vehicles. Florida law permitted this with existing criminal evidence. More critically, Harriet contacted Judge Patricia Morrison, explained the situation, and requested emergency wiretap authorization. "Send me the cabin recording and the insurance fraud documentation," Judge Morrison said through speakerphone. "If they're as strong as Attorney Donovan claims, I'll sign tonight." 30 minutes later, authorization granted. 72 hours starting now. Use it wisely. While Harriet coordinated with surveillance specialists, I sat reviewing Captain Marcus Webb's notarized statement. His handwriting was neat, his account precise, dates, times, exact quotes from what he'd overheard. A career ship captain's attention to detail translated into perfect witness testimony. "Security team is en route to your house," Harriet announced, ending a call. "They'll install cameras tonight while you're still here. Every room except bathroom. Legal requirement. The feed goes to encrypted cloud storage with timestamp authentication." As the sun set over Biscayne Bay, turning the water molten orange, I made the call. Harriet's phone recorded it automatically, attorney-client privilege protecting the documentation. "Hi, Dad," Lula's voice carried wariness. "Lula, I'd like you and Ralph to come by tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. There's something important we need to discuss as a family." Long pause. "What's this about?" "Estate planning. I've made some decisions I want to share with you both." Another pause. Longer. "Tomorrow evening?" 6 o'clock. I'll make lemonade like when you were young." The detail was deliberate, evoking childhood, creating false comfort. After disconnecting, Harriet replayed the call. Her hesitation was pronounced. "She's frightened." She should be. The drive back to Clearwater took nearly 4 hours. I stopped once for gas and terrible coffee, used the time to think through tomorrow's script. Every word mattered. The tone had to be apologetic, but firm, kind, but immovable. I arrived home near midnight. The security team had finished. The house looked unchanged, but tiny cameras now occupied corners, disguised as smoke detector components, thermostat sensors, electrical outlet adapters. I walked through each room, noting their positions. In my living room, I visualized tomorrow's meeting. Ralph and Lula would sit on the sofa, positioning I'd arrange naturally. I'd take my leather chair across from them, maintaining distance, controlling sightlines. The main camera would capture both their faces clearly. At my kitchen table, I opened the notebook I'd carried since the cruise began. The pages documented everything: dates, observations, evidence collected. I wrote one final entry. August 24th. Phase 3 begins. The trap is set. I stood, moved back to the living room where tomorrow's confrontation would unfold. Testing camera angles without looking directly at them, I positioned furniture slightly. The sofa angled for optimal facial capture. The coffee table cleared for unobstructed view. I placed a pitcher and glasses ready for lemonade, arranged coasters, made everything appear casually domestic. My watch showed 12:17 a.m., technically Monday now. In 18 hours, Ralph and Lula would sit in this room, and I'd deliver the words designed to trigger their final, fatal mistake. I turned off the lights, leaving the cameras recording in darkness, their tiny indicator lights blinking like distant red stars. Monday evening arrived with that peculiar Florida humidity that made the air feel thick enough to touch. I adjusted the lemonade pitcher one final time, checked that the glasses sat naturally on the coffee table, glanced at my watch. 5:45. Through the window, I saw their car turn into my driveway. Early. That meant anxiety, eagerness, or both. I opened the door before they could knock. "Come in. I just made fresh lemonade." Lula attempted a hug. I accepted it, felt her trembling slightly. Ralph nodded, no handshake offered, hands staying in his pockets. They settled onto the sofa, exactly where I'd anticipated. I poured lemonade, handed them glasses, took my chair across from them. The leather creaked familiarly beneath me. "You said this was important." Ralph skipped any pretense of small talk. "About estate planning?" "Yes." I set my glass down with deliberate care. The cruise gave me time to think about legacy, about what really matters. I've made a decision I wanted to share with you both. They waited, bodies tense. I'm changing my will. My entire estate, the house, savings, investments, everything will go to the Coast Guard Veterans Fund. I kept my voice gentle, apologetic even. They do important work helping retired service members. I want my legacy to serve that purpose. The silence stretched like a drawn wire about to snap. What? Lula's voice barely qualified as sound. Ralph's face darkened, a flush creeping up from his collar. You're cutting us out? Completely? You're both young, capable people. You'll build your own lives without depending on inheritance. I maintained eye contact with Ralph. I think it's the right decision. Dad, Lula leaned forward, hands clasped together pleadingly. We were counting on... You can't just... Ralph's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Hard. Lula. The warning was clear. I watched the interaction with apparent concern, knowing the camera captured everything. I understand this is disappointing, I continued. But my estate, my choice. I'm meeting with my notary Thursday morning, August 29th, to finalize the paperwork. I wanted to tell you first, as a courtesy to family. Thursday, Ralph's voice was flat. Not a question, a calculation. 3 days from now, yes. I offered a slight smile. I hope in time you'll understand. Ralph stood abruptly, movement sharp enough that his glass nearly toppled. We're leaving! But Dad! Lula started. Now! Ralph pulled her up by the arm, grip leaving white marks on her skin. I followed them to the door, maintaining my sympathetic expression. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Ralph turned at the threshold. His face was a mask barely containing fury. Oh, we hear you clearly, Wilbert. The use of my first name, not Mr. Gray, felt deliberate. Very clearly. They walked to their car. I watched from the window as they sat motionless for several seconds before Ralph started the engine. My phone buzzed. Cromwell's text. Car audio active. Recording clear. Sending feed now. I moved to my computer, opened the encrypted link Cromwell provided. The audio quality was remarkable. Ralph's voice exploded through the speakers. $800,000. Just gone. To some, the profanity was creative. His fists slammed against the steering wheel repeatedly, the car rocking with the violence. Maybe we can talk to him, Lula sobbed. Explain our situation. Talk? You think talking matters now? Ralph's voice shook with rage. He's doing this deliberately. He knows we need that money. He knows. But how can we... We won't let this happen. Ralph started the car, reversed too quickly, tires screeching as he accelerated away. I sat back, watching the surveillance feed. Cromwell's vehicle followed at discreet distance, maintaining visual contact. The next 2 hours passed slowly. I made dinner, grilled chicken, rice, green beans, ate mechanically while monitoring my phone. Around 8 p.m., it lit up with an alert from the wiretap system. Ralph's phone, active call. I opened the live transcript feed, watching text appear in real time as the conversation unfolded. Ralph, I need a job done. Fast. Before Thursday. Unknown. Male. What kind of job? Ralph. Elderly man. Lives alone. Needs to look like a home invasion. Break-in gone wrong. Unknown. Male. That's not cheap work. Ralph. 20,000. Unknown. Male. 25. Ralph. 15. Half now, half after completion. Unknown male. Make it 18 total. 9 and 9. Ralph. Fine. 18. The transcript continued. Ralph provided my address. 234 Coral Drive, Clearwater. The timeline. Before Thursday noon. Must look like robbery. The contact identified himself as Vinny. No last name offered. My hands remained steady as I read, but something cold settled in my chest. This was my daughter's husband, my son-in-law of 7 years, arranging my murder like ordering plumbing repairs. My phone rang. Harriet. Tell me you're seeing this, she said without preamble. I'm watching the transcript now. Clear solicitation of murder. Premeditated. Conspiracy. We have everything, Wilbert. Her voice carried both satisfaction and concern. Time to bring in law enforcement. This has gone far enough. Agreed. I pulled up my contacts, found the number she'd provided days ago. Detective Reyes? Speaking. The voice was professional, slightly wary. He didn't recognize the number. My name is Wilbert Gray. I have evidence of conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and solicitation of murder for hire. I need to meet with you immediately. Mr. Gray, I get a lot of calls claiming evidence of various... I have a court-authorized wiretap recording from tonight, I interrupted. I have audio of my son-in-law hiring someone to kill me before Thursday. I have surveillance footage of him planning my murder on a cruise ship. I have a forged insurance policy for $500,000, and I have an attorney coordinating everything. Silence. Then, what's your attorney's name? Harriet Donovan, Maritime Law, based in Miami. I know Attorney Donovan. She's legitimate. His tone shifted. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, Largo. Bring everything. After hanging up, I sat in my living room's dim light. The camera indicator lights blinked steadily. Small red stars scattered across my ceiling. I pulled out my phone, queued up the wiretap recording Harriet had sent as an audio file. Ralph's voice emerged from the speaker. Elderly man. Needs to look like a home invasion gone wrong. I played it twice, then set the phone down. On my mantel, an old photograph caught the lamplight. Lula at 8 years old, missing her front teeth, my arm around her shoulders at the beach. That child had loved me without reservation. I turned away from the photograph. Rising, I moved to my study, began preparing documents for tomorrow. I printed the insurance policy with its forged signature, burned Captain Marcus Webb's testimony to a USB drive alongside the cabin recording, the cruise ship surveillance footage, tonight's wiretap transcript. I created a physical binder, organized, indexed, tab-separated by evidence type. Decades as a federal inspector had taught me. Comprehensive documentation, clear chain of custody, prosecutable case construction. 3 decades of investigating maritime accidents, and the most important case I'd ever built was against my own family. I checked my watch. Nearly midnight. In 8 hours, I'd walk into the sheriff's office and hand them a completed investigation. Everything they needed to arrest Ralph Morrison and Lula Gray Morrison for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and solicitation of murder for hire. I placed the evidence binder by the front door with my keys, returned to my living room, and sat in my leather chair one final time. The cameras recorded me there in the darkness, a 63-year-old man who'd survived his family's attempt to kill him, who'd built the case that would destroy them. Tomorrow, the trap would close completely. Tonight, I simply sat in the silence, surrounded by blinking red lights, waiting for morning. The evidence binder sat on the passenger seat beside me as I drove toward Largo, its weight somehow heavier than the physical pages inside. I'd slept perhaps 3 hours, functioning now on determination rather than rest. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office appeared ahead, blocky, institutional, representing the shift from private investigation to public justice. Detective Frank Reyes met me in a conference room that smelled of old coffee and institutional cleaning solution. Gray walls, whiteboard covered in case notes from other investigations, recording equipment in the corner. Mr. Gray! His handshake was firm, but his eyes carried professional skepticism. Your attorney said you have evidence of murder conspiracy? Against my daughter and son-in-law. I opened the binder, showing him the index tabs. This is comprehensive. Walk me through it. I started with the cruise, the suspicious gift, the cabin placement, Ralph's questions about my will. Reyes listened, taking occasional notes. Then I played the cabin recording. Ralph's voice emerged clear. Stage a robbery in Nassau. Tourists die here all the time. Reyes stopped the playback. When was this recorded? During the cruise. Hidden camera in my cabin after I'd already escaped. Escaped? I explained the attempted murder plot, Marcus Webb's warning, my evacuation via cargo ship, showed him Marcus's notarized testimony. Reyes leaned forward now, skepticism replaced by sharp focus. Then came the insurance policy. $500,000. Taken out 3 months ago. That's not my signature. Reyes examined it closely. We'll need a handwriting expert. Already done. I showed him the analysis comparing the policy signature to my actual Coast Guard retirement documents. The differences were clear. Pressure points, rhythm, specific letter formations. Finally, Monday night's wiretap. Ralph's voice. Elderly man. Fatal outcome required. Before Thursday. Reyes' expression hardened. He picked up his desk phone. Sergeant, conference room. Bring whoever's available. We've got a live case. Within an hour, the room held 6 people, 2 additional detectives, a prosecutor's office liaison, technical surveillance coordinator, and a sergeant. I presented everything again. The atmosphere shifted from skeptical inquiry to tactical planning. We're not arresting Morrison yet, Reyes announced. Not until his hired killer makes the attempt. You want to catch him in the act? I said. Exactly. Morrison could claim the phone call was hypothetical, never intended to follow through. But if we arrest the shooter with weapon, payment, and your address, then flip him to testify against Morrison. That's unbeatable. What do you need from me? Relocate. We'll monitor your house. When the killer arrives, we take him down. Then he tells us everything about Ralph Morrison. Reyes pulled up a map on his laptop. Holiday Inn, Clearwater Beach. Witness protection budget covers it. Leave your car at home. Lights on timers. Make it look occupied. How long before he comes? Thursday's the deadline Morrison mentioned. Today's Tuesday. My guess? Within 48 hours. By late afternoon, I was in room 318 of the Holiday Inn, watching the Gulf of Mexico through windows I couldn't open. My house, 20 minutes away, bristled with hidden cameras and motion sensors. Plainclothes officers occupied an unmarked van 2 houses down. SWAT waited 3 blocks away. Reyes called that evening. No activity yet. Try to rest. Rest was impossible. I paced, ordered food I couldn't eat, watched mindless television. The waiting felt worse than the active danger aboard the ship. Wednesday crawled by. Hourly updates. Still nothing. Each call increased my anxiety. What if I was wrong? What if Ralph suspected? What if... Wednesday evening, 9:30, my phone rang. Male subject approaching your residence. Reyes's voice carried controlled excitement. Dark clothes, baseball cap, coming from the north alley. Stand by. I couldn't see anything from the hotel, but Reyes kept the line open. I heard radio chatter in the background. Subject at back door. He's working the lock. He's inside. Repeat. Suspect inside the residence. Give him 2 minutes, Reyes commanded someone. Let him commit fully. The wait was excruciating. 120 seconds that stretched like hours. Execute. Go, go, go. Through the phone I heard muffled shouting. Police! Show your hands. Then nothing. Silence. Then suspect in custody. Weapon secured. No shots fired. Reyes spoke directly to me. We got him. Vincent Cordero, 34, priors for assault. Had a loaded 38, cash in his pocket, and your address written on a piece of paper. Has he talked? Not yet, but he will. Thursday morning, I sat in an observation room at the sheriff's office, watching through one-way glass. Vincent Cordero, Vinny, according to the arrest report, sat handcuffed beside a public defender who looked fresh out of law school. Reyes entered with a folder, set it on the table. Mr. Cordero, let's discuss your situation. I want a deal, Vinny said immediately. His voice was flat, resigned. My lawyer says you have me on tape with Morrison. We do. And we have mall surveillance footage of you receiving payment, and we caught you inside the victim's home with a loaded weapon. Reyes opened the folder. You're facing conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, breaking and entering with intent. That's 25 years minimum. Vinny's lawyer whispered in his ear. He nodded. But if you cooperate fully, testify against Ralph Morrison, provide complete details, we can discuss reduced charges. Another whispered consultation, then, what do you want to know? Start with how you met Morrison. Casino. Paradise Shores about 6 months back. We were both losing, ended up talking at the bar. Vinny's recitation was mechanical, a man recounting facts to save himself. Last week he felt me out about specialized work. Monday night he called, said he had an urgent job. What job? Kill his father-in-law, make it look like home invasion. 15,000 total, half up front. Where did you meet for payment? Tyrone Square Mall? Tuesday afternoon, around 3. He gave me $7,500 cash in a white envelope. Reyes pulled out surveillance photos, clear images of Ralph and Vinny beside Ralph's car, envelope visible mid-transfer. Timestamp, 2:47 p.m. He was sweating like crazy, Vinny continued. Kept saying it had to be done before Thursday. Something about a notary appointment, inheritance, needing it done fast. Watching from the observation room, I felt the final piece click into place. Ralph's desperation captured on video, his own hired killer, documenting every detail. Perfect. Reyes emerged 15 minutes later. He'll testify. He'll plead to lesser charges, but he'll give us Ralph Morrison gift-wrapped. What happens now? Now we prepare arrest warrants. Reyes checked his watch. Thursday morning, 6 a.m. We'll hit their house early. Less chance of flight or resistance. He handed me an operational briefing sheet. You can follow in a separate vehicle, but you stay back until we secure the scene. Understood? I took the paper, folded it carefully, placed it in my pocket. I'd been waiting for this moment since Marcus Webb first warned me on that ship's deck under Caribbean stars. Get some rest, Reyes advised as we walked toward the exit. I don't think I could sleep if I tried. Outside, the August night pressed humid and heavy. In a few hours, my daughter would be arrested. In a few hours, justice would be served. I drove back to the hotel, but I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching darkness slowly fade to gray, waiting for morning. Dawn came too slowly and too fast. At 5:45 Thursday morning, I sat in my car 2 blocks from Ralph and Lula's house in a quiet St. Petersburg neighborhood. The arrest briefing sheet lay on the passenger seat. I hadn't slept. Couldn't, after leaving the sheriff's office. Ahead, unmarked police vehicles positioned themselves around the target address. My phone vibrated. Text from Reyes, 5 minutes. Stay in vehicle until we signal all clear. At exactly 6 o'clock, Reyes's team moved. 4 officers approached, 2 front, 2 back. Reyes knocked firmly. Authority in the sound. Lights flipped on inside. Another knock. Harder. Police! Open the door! The lock clicked. Door opened. Lula appeared in a bathrobe, hair disheveled, eyes squinting against the porch light. She saw badges. Her face transformed, color draining completely, hand flying to her mouth. What? What's happening? Ralph's voice from inside. Lula? Who? He appeared behind her, bare-chested sweatpants, and froze. His eyes widened, then narrowed with calculation. Ralph Morrison, Lula Gray Morrison, you're both under arrest. Reyes's voice allowed no argument. Hands where I can see them. For what? Ralph managed. Conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, solicitation of murder for hire. Each charge struck like a hammer blow. Lula swayed. An officer steadied her. Ralph's face cycled through expressions too quickly to track. Shock, denial, fury, calculation. There's been a mistake. You have the right to remain silent. Reyes continued reading Miranda rights as handcuffs clicked into place. Both of them. Neighbors' lights began glowing in windows up and down the street. As officers escorted them toward separate patrol cars, Lula spotted me standing by my vehicle. Dad! Daddy, please! Her voice broke into ragged crying. Tell them this is wrong. It was Ralph. He forced me. I swear I never wanted any of this. I remained silent. I'd heard her voice on those recordings, heard her ask about insurance payout timing, heard her agree to the plan. Dad, please, I'm your daughter. Officers held her back as she tried to reach me. Ralph saw me too, his expression twisting into pure hatred. You did this. You set us up. His voice rose to a roar. Say something. I met his eyes, but didn't respond. What could I say that the evidence hadn't already said? Reyes stepped between us. That's enough. In the car. They were placed in separate vehicles. Lula still crying, Ralph still shouting soundlessly through the window. Reyes approached me. That couldn't have been easy. No, but it was necessary. Want to observe the processing? I nodded. At the sheriff's office, Ralph and Lula were processed separately. Fingerprints, photographs, formal booking. In an interrogation room, Reyes presented the evidence to Ralph's hastily arrived attorney. The cabin recording, Ralph's voice discussing staging a robbery. The wiretap, complete murder solicitation. Vinnie Cordero's detailed statement. Mall surveillance video showing the envelope exchange. The forged insurance policy with signature analysis. Captain Marcus Webb's testimony about the ship plot. Cruise surveillance footage showing Ralph examining the railing outside my cabin. Ralph's attorney went pale, whispered urgently. Ralph's rigid composure finally shattered. He slumped forward, head in handcuffed hands. By mid-morning, formal charges were filed. The prosecutor, Assistant State Attorney Margaret Chen, held a press conference detailing the attempted family murder, the cruise ship plot, the foiled contract killing. Media descended. Cameras. Questions I refused to answer. The bail hearing came that afternoon. Given the severity of charges and flight risk, Judge Torres set bail high. Ralph, $250,000. Lula, $150,000. Neither could post it. They were remanded to Pinellas County Jail pending trial. Their attorneys immediately began discussing plea deals. The evidence was insurmountable. 2 weeks later, I sat in Harriet Donovan's Miami office signing final documents. The insurance company had voided the fraudulent policy. Harriet had filed a civil suit for damages, likely uncollectible, but officially recorded. I signed the new will. Everything to the Coast Guard Veterans Fund, house, savings, investments, approximately $850,000 total. As promised, no inheritance for Lula. This leaves nothing to your daughter, Harriet said quietly. That's correct. Even if she cooperates, serves reduced time, she'll have nothing when released. She made her choice. I set down the pen. Now she lives with the consequences. You're certain? Completely. I drove back to Clearwater, returned to my house for the first time since the arrests. The surveillance equipment was gone, the cameras removed. The rooms felt emptier somehow, even though nothing physical had changed. I stood at my living room window, the same window where I'd watched Ralph and Lula leave after announcing the cruise, where hidden cameras had recorded Monday's confrontation, where I'd stood so many times over 30 years. The Gulf of Mexico stretched before me, unchanged. Same view, same afternoon sun glittering on water, same sound of waves against the shore. But everything else had transformed. My daughter was in jail awaiting trial. Her husband faced decades of imprisonment. The money I'd worked 30 years to accumulate would help veterans who'd served with honor instead of family who'd tried to murder me. On the mantel, that photograph of Lula at 8 years old still sat in its frame. Gap-toothed smile, my arm around her shoulders, a day at the beach before life became complicated. I picked it up, looked at it one final time, then set it face down. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Justice had been served. Cold, complete, necessary justice. Not the warm satisfaction of revenge, just the grim certainty that consequences had arrived where they belonged. I closed the blinds, turned away from the window, and continued living, which was more than Ralph and Lula had planned for me. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.